Okay, so today I'm going to show you guys how I make my bone broth, and it's very simple. I only have 3 ingredients, and that's beef bones, salt, and water. When I first started the carnivore diet, I looked around at a lot of different recipes for bone broth, and almost all of them had all sorts of spices and vegetables in them, which I'm sure tastes great, but when you're doing the strict carnivore diets, you aren't using those things. And so I was honestly doubting whether I could make bone broth that actually tasted good without adding in vegetables and spices, but it's totally possible, and I have figured out a recipe that I have really come to love. So the first thing that I do is just get beef soup bones, and if you're not only eating beef like I am, then you can use any type of bones. You can probably find them at a local farm, or even order them online. So what I do first is just spread out the bones on a baking sheet, and then I put them in the oven at around 375 for like 30 to 40 minutes. And doing that just kind of enhances the flavor of the broth and just makes it taste better. So it's an optional step, but one that I would definitely recommend. Okay, so now that I have all of my bones on this baking sheet, I'm just going to stick them in the oven and set a timer for around 40 minutes. You got the bones out of the oven. You can see they have kind of like a golden crisp around the edges. So I'm going to cook my broth in the Instapot, and you definitely can use a crock pot or slow cooker as well. The Instapot is going to be faster and also lower in histamines. That's something that I am sensitive to, so that's really kind of the main reason that I'm using the Instant Pot right now instead of using a slow cooker. But if you're not worried about histamines and you're not sensitive to them, then by all means use your slow cooker and cook your broth on low until your heart's content. You can cook it for up to like 2 days in the slow cooker, which is pretty cool. All I'm gonna do is just put the roasted bones inside with salt and water. So pretty simple. I always use Redmond's real salt. It tastes amazing and it's really good for you. As for the bones to water ratio, it's kind of hard to get that wrong. I typically kind of just eyeball it and try to get the water level about almost as tall as where the bones are. If you want to do it a little bit higher and cover them up, then that's totally good. I have 4 pounds of bones in here, and I think I'm going to do about 8 to 10 cups of water with it. So I will just put the pressure cooker on the broth setting for 3 hours. Some people do only 2, and then it will be all ready to go. Always make sure you have the seal on the vent closed, and then when it's done, you can quick release and all the steam will come out. And that's what it looks like. So once you vent the Instapot and take the bowl out, then kind of just let it cool for a bit, and I'm going to double strain it. So first I'm gonna use this strainer and strain it into a bowl, and then I will use this funnel, and there's like a, let me show you, fine little strainer in there as well to get all of the little bits out of the broth that you won't want in there. So, and you probably want a helper because it's kind of hard to do the training process with just one person. So this is my husband, Jake.
Hi.
We still have little pieces of things that came through the strainer that we'll get out with this more fine strainer and funnel. I'm going to pour them into these mason jars and then we'll let them get cooler down to room temperature before putting them in the fridge. Perfect. There's all the little pieces that the strainer catches. Once this cools down, the fat will rise up to the top and there'll be a layer of fat on the top, which you're going to want to scrape off, but I'll show you guys that tomorrow after we leave it in the fridge overnight. So it's cooled down enough so I can put it into the fridge. Last time I made bone broth, I accidentally left it out all night, so I had to throw it away, which is really sad. So just make sure that while it's cooling, you set some sort of timer or something like that so you don't forget and leave it out too long. So yeah, I'm just gonna put it in the fridge overnight, and then in the morning I will scrape the top layer of fat off of it. As you can see, it's already starting to separate. So it's now the next morning and the broth has cooled off and the fat has hardened on the top. So I'm just gonna get a wooden spoon to scrape the fat off at the top, and I'm gonna save that because it'll be good for cooking with. So I'll just put it into the freezer and use it almost like a tallow. If you happen to have a jar that doesn't get more narrow at the top, then it's much easier to get the fat off, and it'll often just come off in one big piece, so you don't have to kind of go fishing for all the little pieces like this. If you are going to use the fat for cooking with, then I'd recommend saving it from a couple of batches and then simmering it down to get the moisture off so that it won't spit oil everywhere when cooking with it. So the broth should be kind of like a jello-like texture. That shows that it's really gotten a lot of the nutrients from the bones. And to heat it up, I just put it in a little pot on the stove. You can put it in the microwave. We actually don't have a microwave right now in our house, so I've been having to heat it up on the stove. And a lot of people will add salt to their broth, like as they're heating it up, and I had tried using Redmond's salt in my broth, but I found that the salt all kind of fell to the bottom of the cup, and at the end of drinking the cup it would be like so salty that it made me pretty nauseous. So I started putting my electrolyte drops in the broth instead, which I found has given kind of a more consistent level of saltiness within the broth. I use the Keto Chow electrolyte drops, and I'll link everything that I've used in the video down below so you guys can find them if you want to. So that's all there is to it. I've been enjoying having my broth in the morning. I don't drink coffee or tea, so it's nice to have like a hot drink, especially during the fall and the winter. It's so good for you, so I'm glad that I found a recipe that fits with the carnivore and lion diet that actually tastes good. I definitely will be making more strict carnivore and lion diet recipe videos. I really just want to show that, you know, you don't need like spices or sugar or anything like that to make food taste good. So be sure to subscribe and follow along for more carnivore diet recipes and tips and tricks. And I will look forward to seeing you guys next time.